マスタング大佐以外は撃ってよし。
There it is. Civilians, or in civilian clothing. Oh, it's that guy again. Yeah, sure did. It's tough. It's tough for her, right?
国に捨てられたのですか。主人が私を捨てたのですか。
Yeah.
わかりません。我々が必ずお守りします。すべてことが済んだ時に、我々が間違っていなかったことを証明していただくためにも。
Wow, it's a traumatic experience for her. Rightfully so.
俺たちがブリッグズ兵だったら、お前は死んでいた。大総統が行方不明の件は夫人には話していないのですか。
ああ、気絶でもされたら移動が困難になる。
少なくとも一個正体はいるもよ。
At least a platoon.
負傷59、死亡0です。
Zero dead.
ゼロ。炎の錬金術師ってあれだろ。石丸戦でものすごかったって。なんか意外と大したことないよな。
Is that right?
だよな。先からしょぼいバックエン。
Yeah, it's by design, my guy.
負傷後、死亡0。
Zero.
死人が出なかったのはラッキーだ。ウィッシュバールの英雄に鷹の目もいるんだぞ。死人が出ない方が。
That's right. That's right.
まさか。間違いない。やつら。手を抜いているだと。ディミトリ隊とキム隊も出せ。
Dimitri squad.
マスタングの部下の死体をここに積み上げろ。
His response: stack up the bodies.
やつはこちらの兵を殺さずに戦力だけ削いでいるとか。
そんな器用な真似が続くわけなかろう。
マスタング大佐も甘いですな。それを倒せぬ中央軍も甘ったるいことこの上ない。まるで子供の遊びです。
なんだと。
たった一人の反逆者に司令部を氷漬けにされかかったとか。
Isaac
建
McDougal.
国以来セントラルは大きな敵に攻められたことがない。攻撃はうまくても防御がど下手。どうです？中央軍を少し私に預けてみませんか。
調子に乗るなよアームストロング。ブリッグズ兵と貴様のつながりが強いのは知っている。それゆえに貴様がここにいることがブリッグズ兵に
yeah, but what if
強力な風となる。
they come to her? That voice acting, the laugh.
何も分かっちゃいない。奴らには有事の際には私を見捨てろと言い含めてある。ブリッグズの掟は弱肉強食。たとえ私がここでくたばったとしても、それは私が弱かっただけのこととして切り捨て、
The monolith.
ひるまず動くことのできる集団。上っ面で私が育てた兵を語るな。
西区工場地帯でマスタング大佐が交戦中。
Oh yes.
多くの兵が
Goosebumps right now.
裂かれている。
Woo! Look at this.
出るぞ。この穴蔵ともおさらばだ。セントラルの腰抜けどもの喉上に噛みついてやれ。
ほら来たぞ。
Ah!
ブリッグズ団の巨大グマとためを張れる猛者どもだ。あなた方自慢の人形とどちらが強いかな。
This is so grand. So grand. Yes.
ですが装備から見るに
That's right.
ではないかと。ブリッグズか。
Oh, that was Kimberly. That looked like Kimberly.
アームストロング家の中。
The eyes?
屋敷の修理に紛れて兵と
Yeah.
運び入れて
どんだけでかいんですか、その家。
It's massive, my guy.
もしもの時は私を置いて逃げろよ。
了解。
そこは最後までお供しますじゃないのかね。
男と心中なんて真っ平です。
家で神さんが待ってるしね。
Ice cream truck. Okay, who's in here?
レベッカ遅刻よ。
Rebecca.
悪い悪い。そんなお待ちかねのあなた。
There's space here for.
素敵なプレゼント。
いいぞレベッカ愛してる。
うっさい。
金のない男は
Ah,
どうぞ。
すまない。
Maria.
ぶりです。マスタング大佐。
It is. It is.
マリア・ロス少尉。
Non-lethal. Pepper spray, perhaps.
真の国の催涙弾よ
Tear gas.
唐辛子増量
もしかしてこれ全部死んで仕入れたのか。
これほど大量の武器を君一人で調達したのか、それとも誰かの指示で。
話しますか。本人と。
かしこまっちゃってまあ。いつもの調子で行きましょうよ、大佐。愛されて80
Oh.
年、パンツのゴムから装甲車まで電話一本でいつでもどこでもお届け参上。あなたの町のハーボック雑貨店ハーボックお支払いよ。
出世払いだ。つけとけ。
大佐とブリッグズの連中が動き出したみたいだな。今頃セントラルは大混乱だ。そろそろ行くか。
ああ、国土連星人のカウンターは仕込んであるが
Counter.
元から発動させないに越したことはない。あいつは所詮フラスコの中身がでかくなっただけだ。入れ物を壊せば死ぬだろう。あいつの中に縛られている人々の魂も解放してあげられる。
ハインケルは留守を頼む。
ああ、すまんな。
気にするな。マルゴーさんは軍の連中に見つかんなよ。
ヨキお前も留守番し
He's thankful for that.
喜んで。
He's still banging. There is a rhythmic quality to it as well, right?
何やら街が騒がしいですね。
Oh, that's beautiful.
もうすぐお父様が見せてくれるはずだ。不老不死の秘密をね。
ブリッグズの指揮権を私から奪ったのはそっちだろう。
貴様ただで済むと思っているのか。
そちらこそただで済むと思っているのか。 お父様とやらに聞いているのだろう。
That father
何を
guy.
犠牲にして何を得ようとしているのか。
我ら選ばれた者たちが
Oh, come on, my guy.
このアメストリスが世界を変える。変化す
Smart
る
enough.
痛みを伴うのは仕方のないことだ。
もうダメだな、貴様らは。
何？
ぬくぬくと安全地帯から戦場を眺める貴様らのようなものが、痛みとかいうものをさも崇高であるかのように仕立て上げ利用する。どうかな？ことが終わった時には
Yeah, matter of perspective, my guy.
ただし私はイシュバールの英雄ほど甘ったるくはない。
Whoa.
卑怯な無実のロッションを殺しておいて、今度は
I think it's time to fill him in.
人の皮をかぶった悪魔め。
Hey.
早く若を探さねば。とはいえ、気配で王にも地下の巨大な木の流れが邪魔で。
Ah, right.
はて、先日よりも地下の気配が広がっておるような。
Whoa. It's a signal, isn't it? Yeah, it's a signal. Oh, wow. Yeah, now it's like a beeping noise as well. For effect. Yeah. Look at the squad, man.
入り口の警備は3人だな。
いや、こういう時こそ俺の肩書きの使いどころだろ。警備さん国家錬金術師のエドワード・エルリックです。助けてください。スカイに追われてるんです。
He's looking young again. The character model is not consistent, to be honest.
お前ひどい。
Yeah.
せ、行くぞ。はい、ちょっとごめんよ。
Look at Hoenheim. He's so. Yeah. That's a memorable spot, isn't it?
かれるか。
だな。
Again?
こっちエドワードとスカーはそっちな。
俺がこいつと。
連星の力配分で言ったらこうだろう。それにあいつが錬金術封じの技を使った時、スカーは使えたけどお前は無力だったんだろう。
じゃあこいつらセットで決まりな。
I love it.
だがまあ、せっかくだから真のお嬢さんにボディーガードになってもらおうか。
Interesting.
大丈夫大丈夫。おっさんは若い娘さんと二人だけの方が嬉しいの。
But he,
べ親父め。行こう行こう。
see, he's looking too young again. Oh, no, he's got a reason for that, of course. But he's kind of... He wants to talk to her, I think.
君、真の王子を探さなきゃいけないんだろう。行きなさい。
いや、しかし。
I'll be
我々
fine.
のことは気にするな。大事な人なんだろう。
Ah. As expected of the homie Hoenheim.
ありがとうございます。
Now then. He did make that declaration, did he? A few episodes ago. Well, here comes the unknown into the mix.
賢者の一種ではないか。
The Immortal Army, eh? Oh, beautiful lighting here. Look at this. Woo.
反逆者どもを食らい尽くせ。
Oh. Oh, is that it? Okay, episode 50. Now, listen, I'll be honest. I think in my mind, I did kind of build it up as something really quite special. And it was. You know, don't get me wrong. It was a really good episode. A fantastic episode. Like I mentioned, it was so grand in its presentation and the things that are at play now, right? You've got all of these different groups. And, you know, before I go any further, once again, you have to just give it to Arakawa, right? The way she's developed this incredible ensemble cast, no matter how big their role actually might be, at the end of the day, they still matter. Everyone in this story matters, right? And like I said, you know, her developing these characters, the ensemble cast and the supporting cast, right down to the most limited appearance characters, all of them have been fleshed out adequately, that now in this phase of the story, in the conclusion of the story, you get this kind of payoff. A lot of these characters coming back into it, a lot of these connections coming into play. It's beautiful to see and experience, isn't it? And for that reason, it feels just so earned and so grand, right? Yeah, you know, it's certainly a fantastic episode. But, you know, I think in my mind, I built this up, episode 50, I built this up as something massive. I actually thought that this is going to give me some kind of major revelation or something that's going to require a lot of discussion, right? I mean, yes, you know, I have a lot to discuss here, but I feel like, yeah, you know, I don't want to say I'm disappointed by the episode, but I feel like, yeah, you know, I did build it up as something much more than it actually was. I mean, at the end there, you saw my reaction. I was really quite surprised that it ended there. And the thing is, you know, I actually go to the Blu-ray and then I'll actually kind of extract single episodes, right? And I kind of put them through Handbrake, so it's, you know, much easier. So the last thing in that episode, in that cut of that episode, is just a black screen. So, you know, I'm just kind of looking at the black screen thinking it's a transition. But no, it just stays at that black screen, because once the file or the episode file stops playing, it just stops at the final frame, and the final frame is just a black screen. And then, of course, if I know there's a post-credit scene, I'll rip the ending, and then, of course, the post-episode portion as well. You can go through chapters, essentially, in Handbrake. I'm sure many of you know Handbrake. Really quite useful. It's a useful tool for a content creator. It really is, especially if you're handling a lot of media, right? A lot of files, reaction content, or source footage, all of that. It's really quite helpful in getting this footage ready for editing and uploading, because of course a lot of these raw files can be massive in size. But I digress. Let's get back to the episode itself. But you see at the end there that the Immortal Army has been unleashed, but it should be noted that it's been prematurely unleashed. But yeah, that one guy, the mustache guy, he's like, no, this is it. They've done enough. He felt that they've done more than enough at this point. There's no time to give him more time or allocate more time. But yeah, let's see how that plays out. I thought it was really quite, clear that the researcher is not really quite confident about this or the release of them just yet. But that moment, oh God, as the souls are being bonded to these puppets, to these conduits, it's quite the haunting moment, isn't it? It's haunting everyone. Everyone's picking this up. Not everyone. Everyone that is able to pick it up. This shows people like Mei Chang, Hoenheim, Lan Fan, Ed, those kind of people, right? So yeah, here you have this unknown. So it'll be interesting to see if Olivier, who is just incredible, isn't she? A thing I'm really kind of sad about at this moment in time, only 14 episodes left now, and you can see that a lot of it is being allocated to this promised day. But the only thing I'm really quite sad about is that I didn't get enough of Olivier before coming into this. There's certainly a solid amount of Olivier, but it's more of a preference thing. I would have loved to have seen more of her leading up to this. And then, of course, that is really quite applicable to Hoenheim. Yes, I've been seeing Hoenheim since the really early days of this anime. But, just now, I'm finally actually getting to experience Hoenheim. Or not just now, but you get my point, right? Over the span of these past 10 or so episodes, you really get to see the real Hoenheim on display. Before that, he was only really depicted as this mysterious figure. And I call him mysterious, but by that I mean there wasn't much of a focus on him up until recently, right? Yeah. Of course, I loved seeing Ed and Hoenheim together, part of the same group. It's really quite the impressive group. You've got Scar, you've got Ed, you've got Hoenheim, you've got the Chimera, though of course Heinkel is out of commission at the moment, so he has to sit this one out. Heinkel, Yoki, Dr. Marco, and Al inside of that dome, they are about to get bamboozled. They have to get ready for this. I'm not sure if they're ready for this, unfortunately, because Al is on the inside. So they only really have Dr. Marco, right? And Yoki is there too, but come on, it's pretty clear at this point. That's essentially Morse code, isn't it? And you see, from a storytelling standpoint, they start introducing that beeping sound effect in as well, right? That's just for us, the audience, essentially, to kind of drive home that point. Okay, this is a signal or some kind of signal or code that they've developed, right? And I'm speaking of Father and his children, the homunculi, right? So yeah, at this point, it's clear he's going to be rescued. Pride, that is going to be rescued. And given that Father is still firmly sat in his throne underground, and that, once again, they kind of lean into the whole piping aspect, right? They're really focused on that. The camera even tends to follow it throughout the underground, doesn't it? And, once again, there's a shot that lingers on it before the immortal soldiers are animated. So yeah, of course, there's that aspect that he is being connected to a lot of these things through that, right? Now, like I was saying, given the fact that Father is just kind of sat there and doesn't appear he's going to be moving anytime soon, I doubt he's going to go out there rescue Pride himself. Surely it's got to be Sloth. Who else is there? There's no one else there. Unless, of course, Wrath comes in. King Bradley makes his return, maybe. And I did speculate that it could be Sloth that kind of digs through, maybe. Though, maybe there's not enough time to be digging through right now. Maybe Sloth might take a different approach this time. But yeah, let's see how that plays out. Sloth is not the most I was about to say formidable. I'm sure he's formidable. He could take a beating, that's for sure. But it's better than having Envy show up. But speaking of Envy, you see that May is leading Envy right back to Father, right? So there's a good chance that they might be restored as well soon enough. And also, going back to Ed and Hoenheim in this episode together, there's a lot of fun moments. There's a lot of interesting moments. Given Ed's reactions to certain things. But, in terms of fun moments, you see that, Hoenheim doesn't really approve of this mean approach, taking out the soldiers in that manner. And he's really quite uneasy about breaking in there. He's one of the only ones that is kind of, trying to hide a bit. He's not really too sure about this approach they're taking. So again, you see that there's certain things that he does not get from his own father. He doesn't get from Hoenheim. There are some differences as well, even though they are really quite alike. But also you see that he obeys his father because his father's logic checks out. Kind of separating or allocating alchemy into two groups, and again, quite the timely reminder that remember the last time. The guy down there, he turned off alchemy, essentially, but it didn't affect Scar, did it? So, he's thinking. He's a thinker. He's thinking about all of these moves, steps ahead. He sees quite a bit. He plans quite a bit. You see that he was even able to pick up on Lanfan's anxiety at the moment, right? Of course, he has this cover story of, I'll take this young girl as my bodyguard. This old man is fine just with this young, this wonderful young girl. But of course, it was to get her by herself so you can tell her, go ahead, go look for him. I'll be fine. And then, of course, in terms of interesting moments between Ed and Hoenheim, or interesting reactions, Hoenheim mentioned that, okay, essentially he's just in a bigger flask. And, episodes ago, he mentioned the leather bag or the flesh of leather. Yeah, leather bag, I think he called it, if they can destroy that. Now, something really interesting comes out of this for Ed, because he gets to kind of see a bit more of his father, get to kind of understand a bit more about his father's motives and disposition, right? He hears him say, perhaps they can save the souls as well, right? That are trapped. But that being said, Ed also knows that his father is essentially really similar to Father in terms of the buildup. So, right, at that moment, to me, it kind of felt like, okay. So, he's kind of clocking that maybe, his own father is going to try to save the souls that are trapped inside of him as well at some point. That it is going to get to that point. But listen, that being said, I've kind of maintained, and the story itself, the anime itself is also kind of alluding to it a few times at this point, that it is going to offer or give Hoenheim some kind of route out of this cursed existence, perhaps, this cursed immortality, right? You see in one of those episodes, I guess a few episodes ago at this point, he's talking to the late Trisha. And, he tells her, I'll see you soon. I'll join you soon enough. So, there is this, I try not to think about it a lot because it makes me really quite sad. And you see now Ed's going to be thinking about it as well, Now you could see it, slowly you could see it, that they are building a sort of relationship, that they are starting to bond a bit. That it's not as spiky as it used to be. So it'll be interesting to see how Ed kind of reacts to Hoenheim and the things he's putting into motion, and the possibility of essentially losing Hoenheim as well down the line. And at this point, it really feels like a good chunk of those episodes are going to just fly by. This episode flew by because it feels like so much needs to be covered. And it makes sense, given the magnitude of the promised day and how much buildup there was to this moment. Right. Actually, I do feel that I need to look again at my expectations because, a few episodes ago, I was talking about how I'm expecting perhaps a few episodes of Aftermath. I don't think that's really realistic anymore, given how this is playing out now, in terms of the pacing, in terms of, again, the crazy amount of things that need to be covered. So maybe not 4 to 5 episodes of Aftermath. It doesn't feel realistic anymore. Maybe an episode or 2. It's possible it could just be an episode as well. Though, of course, that being said, you can't just essentially have it all wrap up and then just have an episode after the major wrap up either, right? Realistically speaking, I'm probably going to get the main conclusion to all of this, to this conflict, in the final episode, and then hopefully at least half of that episode is going to be Aftermath. 4 episodes of Aftermath. Yeah, even I think that's kind of crazy to be expecting that. I was actually, looking at that episode, or I came across a discussion on that episode again, and I was like, hold on, bro, you're asking for a bit much here. Now, let me kind of circle all the way back to my initial point about Olivier and, the army, the Immortal Army now. I'm guessing surely she got a chance to communicate this to Mustang, right? That there is this army, that she's seen them. She's seen the puppets or the conduits. And that, they could come into play at some point. Maybe they're not going to be completely bamboozled by this. Maybe he has briefed them that this could be a possibility in the near future, right? But, one of the standout moments of this episode is Olivier just dressing down that one guy. I don't know if there's a name for him, but, she really starts having to go at them for being so incompetent, so hopeless. And you see the reason they are handpicked. It's these types of people, right? You see the people that they are concerned about are people like Grumman that are kind of being controlled by, either being shipped out of Central in Grumman's case, or being brought into Central in Mustang's case. So, they can keep an eye on him, right? These are the types of people they need to look out for, right? The people they pick, the people they hand-selected are not as ambitious as any of these individuals I just mentioned. These are people that are easy to manipulate. Like Olivier also picked up, they're hopeless. They just don't see it. They don't see that they're being used and that they are expendable. So I love that moment. Man, Olivier is just so charming and charismatic, right? The screen presence and the voice acting. Oh my goodness, the voice acting. Listen, I find it to be really quite attractive as well. Not that it really matters in the grand scheme of things. Just a preference thing, a personal preference thing. So attractive, that voice acting, that voice actor, whoever she is. But yeah, it just matches her perfectly. It really does. And then of course, all the men that trained under Olivier, the men of Briggs, show up as well, right? So it kind of goes all the way back to that fight that happened and her just absolutely destroying that mansion, fighting Alex, her brother. And then, a few episodes ago, they, set up that it's so massive that you could fit a battalion in there, right? An entire company could be housed in there, essentially. And that's exactly how it played out. Now, they didn't show me how they got them in. I'm sure, they snuck them in somehow. There's a lot of that going on, right? Sneaking people in. Allies that you haven't seen for a long time, including people like Maria, who I expected, as I mentioned a few episodes ago. I'm sure she might already be here. So it was lovely to see Maria Ross, who's been doing her thing, behind the scenes or off screen. Havoc, oh my goodness, how lovely was it to see Mustang's reaction the moment he realizes it's Havoc on the other end of the phone. That was so wholesome. Just seeing his face light up. Right? And to see Havoc playing such a significant part still, right, from the sidelines, is beautiful to see, right? And again, it all goes back to that setup, right? The family business, the department store, right? Maybe I'll just kind of join up and help out at the department store, the family business, something along those lines, right? It all comes back, and through that business, they're able to get through goods, ammo, stuff from Jing as well. But then, of course, speaking of Olivier and then Mustang, you really get to see the two different approaches on display. I mean, Olivier and her men from Briggs, it's quite a cold and ruthless approach, right? So much so that at one point I actually thought I'm seeing Kimberly in disguise. I had to go back and look at it. It appears to just be, it's one of those Briggs ninjas, essentially, right? Assassin squad. I legitimately thought I'm looking at Kimberly kind of trying to disguise himself maybe. But, if you really think about it, that doesn't really make sense. But that's how ruthless they are. For a moment, I actually thought that is Kimberly stabbing someone in the neck. And then, going back to the big reveal, it's one of the big moments of the episode, right? One of the great moments of the episode. Buccaneer and the rest of them. I actually missed it initially, but there is someone standing in that background, someone who has red eyes. Now, of course, that's just for effect, but I initially missed it. That's Azumi Sensei because they show her slippers. It just kind of slipped my mind at the moment. I just didn't really connect the fact that, yeah, she has been up north, meaning her husband's around as well, maybe. But yeah, that was great. That was great to see Azumi Sensei just chilling in the background. I actually didn't even notice the red eyes because I was just kind of looking at Buccaneer and reading the subtitles. Sometimes that can happen, you know. Sometimes if you are kind of reading the subtitles, you kind of almost forget to look at the entire frame. Sometimes. I'm usually pretty good about scanning the entire frame. I'm sure you've seen me scanning frames a lot in the past, but in this, you know, specific moment, I kind of missed the red eyes. Now compare that to Roy Mustang's non-lethal approach, right? He's not trying to kill anyone. It's all by design. You know, a lot of it's actually quite telegraphed, especially his alchemy. He's giving them a chance to retreat, get out of there. And the thing is, it's effective because a few of them are starting to notice, or they are beginning to notice this approach, that it's a non-lethal approach, right? So, you know, Roy Mustang knows that a lot of these men are just following orders, that they are in the dark about a lot of this. So he's not trying to kill them, you know, they are not the target. The target is the higher ups, the people at the top. So, you know, there's a lot of setup here. The gears are turning, you know. Now they also have, you know, Mrs. Bradley on their side, the Fuhrer's wife, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal. But of course, you know, let's not forget that Roy Mustang doesn't forget the human side. He is able to see the human side, that this is quite the jarring and traumatizing experience for her. She's rattled at that moment, right? And it's heartbreaking to see. It's one of the most heartbreaking moments of the entire anime, really, right? Her world is just crumbling at that moment. And Roy Mustang knows, he sees it, he understands it. And you know, it's so heartbreaking because she's so unsure. She's been in the dark about all of this, and now she's not even sure. Is it my husband that's forsaken me? Is it his associates that have forsaken him? Right? She's just so confused about all of it. Now, to be fair to Wrath or to King Bradley, he has no clue about any of this at the moment, right? So he hasn't technically forsaken his wife. But you know, that being said, once push comes to shove, ultimately this might have been the thing he would have been forced to do anyways, you know, part from his wife. But this approach and how Roy Mustang is treating this, I mean, listen, it's still incredibly painful, of course, to be getting shot in the foot and getting shot in the leg, right? Of course it's painful. That's just the price of all of this. But you know, ultimately it's not lethal. And you know, they're smart enough to know. A few of them put this together, or that one guy for sure puts it together. Okay, listen, they've got the Hawkeye and they've got Roy Mustang, but somehow, you know, no one's dying here. So it's good to see that they're picking up on this. But also, it's quite a useful diversion of resources, isn't it? Because you know, you see that they show us specifically that anytime one guy's kind of, you know, taken out for the moment, out of the fight, it requires one or two soldiers to take them out of there, right? To retreat, to help them retreat. So, you know, it's not just one, it's two or three of them having to retreat, you know, getting out of that situation for that moment in time, at least. But yeah, I think that does it for this episode, folks. I mean, it's an incredible feeling to be 50 episodes in. It's quite the landmark, isn't it? So I've got 14 episodes to go. It'll take me a bit more than a month to get through the final 14 episodes, right? 8 episodes a month, essentially. So yeah, I mean, it's exciting. It's exciting. It's starting to feel bittersweet, you know, because now I'm at that point in the anime or the story that the end is in sight, right? For long chunks of this anime, you know, I just didn't even have to think about that prospect. But now it's there, you know, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel at this point. 14 episodes is just going to fly by, especially, again, given the pacing and the amount of things that are playing out on screen. So if you did enjoy that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you are interested in perhaps the next few episodes right now, early access to the next 3 episodes at this point, or perhaps the timer-based full-length reactions, consider checking out the Patreon page and supporting the channel perhaps. And, you know, also beyond Fullmetal Alchemist, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on at the moment on the channel. So consider checking out some of the other stuff that might be going on the channel at the moment. But yeah, if you're interested in Patreon, the links are in the description and the pinned comment. Also links to social media, things like Twitter, Instagram. Right then, thank you so much for joining me, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is. And I do hope to see you again soon for episode 51. Till then, take it easy.